This podcast is for anyone who has ever felt stuck, whether it's a major life transition, a dark night of the soul, or just staying small out of fear. If you've ever struggled to move forward, if you're repeating unhealthy patterns in relationships, or you have a black belt in beating yourself up, you were meant for more, and this podcast is for you. We'll get real, we'll get vulnerable, we'll probably cuss a little bit, and we'll get to the root of it all, your self-worth. With every step, you'll find the courage to rise. Welcome to episode 7 of the Courage to Rise podcast. Today's episode is about the squirm. What is the squirm, you ask? Well, it's when you receive a compliment or when someone says something positive to you and you get squirmy. It feels so uncomfortable for you, and we dismiss it, and we try to move out of it, and we try to move away from it, and we try to bypass it, and we say, oh no, it's okay, and we diminish it. Have you ever done that? Have you ever felt really uncomfortable receiving a compliment or a gift or support from someone, whether it's a friend or a stranger? I'm going to bet that you have. And I'm also going to bet that you feel much more comfortable giving to other people, complimenting other people, and supporting other people than you do receiving it in return. I'm going to use a client example that illustrates this really well. This was a gentleman that I was working with, and really, like all of my clients, no matter what we're working on, ultimately it comes down to strengthening our core of worthiness and starting to understand where those signs of our own lack of self-worth are showing up, sometimes in really small, seemingly innocuous ways. And this is a great example of how that shows up and how we can start to bring awareness to it and learn to receive in little ways and in big ways. And so in this example, we were talking about how much he loved to do things for other people, but how he had a really hard time letting people do things for him. And he said, it makes me so uncomfortable. And I hate it. I feel guilty when people do things for me. I don't like it. I really don't like it at all. And I asked him, I said, well, why not? Let's go into that. He said, I don't know. I just feel really bad when people do things for me. I said, okay, well, do you like it when, do you like doing things for other people? Do you like giving people compliments? And he brightened up, his entire demeanor changed. And he said, oh yes, I love helping others. I love supporting other people. I love making other people feel good, bringing a smile to their face. It makes me feel so good. It really brings me a lot of joy. And I said, well, why would you deny other people the same pleasure when they're trying to give to you? And he was quiet for a minute, and I could hear that really landed. And this is something that so many of us deal with because it does feel good to support others, to compliment other people, and to help others, but we have such a hard time receiving it in return. And bring awareness to the last time someone gave you a compliment or someone offered to help you with something. What was your response? Sit with that and let's think about what actually was going on for you in that moment. Sometimes if it's somebody offering support to us, we push it away because we feel on some level like we should be able to do it all ourselves. There's that shoulding again, right? We have to watch that shoulding. That somehow if we don't do everything ourselves, it means that we aren't good enough or we aren't talented or we aren't worthy. And if it's a compliment, a lot of times we don't receive it because it feels out of alignment with what we believe to be true about ourselves. And I'm dropping some major truth bombs with this, but if someone tells you something about yourself that at your core you don't fundamentally believe to be true, you're going to push it away unconsciously. If someone tells you you look beautiful or that you have a radiant smile or something else that's really true and deeply complimentary about yourself, and you feel that squirm and that discomfort, it's because it's showing you that deep down, you don't necessarily believe that to be true. And that's giving you information about helping to shore up that core belief in yourself and receiving compliments and receiving support. Ultimately, we only receive that which we actually feel worthy of. There's a huge connection with our inner worth and monetary value as well. It's the reason why self-worth is so important when it comes to things like compensation in the workplace, or if you're an entrepreneur, compensation for the work that you do. You are energetically really only compensated to the extent that you feel worthy of it. There can be upper limit problems with this in the sense of, if I feel like I am only worth making $50,000, $100,000 a year, then you're going to unconsciously keep yourself in that place. You're going to keep yourself in that zone, right? You're not going to be able to receive more than you feel you are fundamentally worthy of. It's also the reason why a lot of people won't charge for the service they offer or the value that they bring, or they won't charge enough. And it's that there can be a lot tied into the self-worth piece of it. Certainly there are other elements that go into it. We all have associations that we pick up along the way, but ultimately it comes down to, if you are bringing value and if you believe in the value that you bring, whether it's in the workplace, like I said, or whether it's you're an entrepreneur charging for a service that you offer, the connection there is that you have the confidence in the value that you bring, and you believe that there's worth behind it. This also comes up in relationships, especially romantic relationships, where if you fundamentally don't feel worthy of receiving love, or if deep down you are at war within yourself, then you are more likely to attract a partner that either is reinforcing those unhealthy patterns, or potentially you're at risk of being vulnerable to toxic relationships, where a relationship could turn abusive, either physically abusive or emotionally abusive, because if your partner is telling you something about yourself that might be fundamentally pretty cruel, but if it's deep down something that you believe in yourself, if you believe that you really are not worthy, that you really are not lovable, that you are not, insert chosen belief here, then if you hear that reflected back from someone else, it's going to be much easier for you to accept that, because it is reinforcing the fact that you don't fundamentally feel worthy. And the reason that I call these things out is because we do not often connect how our deep feelings of unworthiness manifest in things like the money that we make, in the relationships we have. And it may seem like a very small or silly example, that if I say, if you have a hard time receiving a compliment, that's a piece of information about your feelings of your own worthiness to receive that. And the ways that we start to shift it, one way that you can outwardly start to shift it, because a lot of this work it's from the outside in and it's from the inside out. It's an inside job. And also there are things that we can do in the practical world that help us. And one of those ways is start to really tune in to when you feel discomfort around receiving something from someone else, when you feel discomfort, maybe around the idea of charging a certain amount for your services, or when you feel discomfort if someone tells you something positive about yourself or something really, really affirming. And if you feel that discomfort, if it feels, and I use squirm for a reason, because you are trying to almost get away from it because it feels so far out of alignment with what your core belief is about yourself. But if you can start to breathe and sit with that, and instead say, thank you, I received that from you, thank you, that feels good to hear. And start to focus on receiving those things when you hear them, when you do hear those positive things, it's going to start to make those shifts from the inside out for you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Courage to Rise podcast. Visit my website, couragetorise.com, for more information on one-on-one coaching, group coaching programs, and other upcoming events. Remember, life's too short not to sparkle. Sparkle on.